Decades before our hearts melted at the sight of Baby Yoda, there was Gizmo. And what a time to be alive it was in 1984 when Joe Dante unleashed Gremlins on the world. Now, was it a Christmas movie? Was it a comedy? For the purposes of our discussion here today at Aging Gracefully, it's a 80s horror movie of the highest caliber. But does it hold up in 2025? Let's talk about it. To start things off, we find ourselves traversing Chinatown, and we meet Rand Peltzer, who's narrating our little adventure here. Now, Rand fancies himself an inventor. He says he makes fantastic ideas for a fantastic world. He makes the illogical logical, and he's looking for a Christmas present for his son, Billy. Rand's following a young man who promises him something unique and interesting in a downstairs shop run by his grandfather. Now, initially, it seems like he's more interested in selling his product to the old man until he hears a singing coming from the corner of the shop that intrigues him. So he moseys over there, and that's where we get the first interaction between Rand and this creature that's singing in a crate off in the corner of the room. Rand wants it. He immediately wants to buy it. He offers $100. He gets refused. He offers $200. He gets refused. Much to the grandson's chagrin, the grandfather won't budge on a price for this thing. He says that this Mogwai, which is what it's called, great responsibility must be taken when dealing with this particular creature, and he doesn't feel like Rand is responsible enough, or he doesn't trust anybody else to take care of this Mogwai. So Rand is bummed, but he's not deterred. And the grandson promises him, hey, meet me out in the alley. I'll bring this thing to you. $200, right? They make a deal. Rand takes off with the Mogwai, but not before we get the grandson now narrating, telling Rand about the three very important rules of caring for a Mogwai. One, no bright light. Direct light, sunlight, could kill the thing. Two, don't get them wet, no matter what. And three, under no circumstances are you to feed these things after midnight. Rand walks off with his present for his son, and we are met with the soothing voice of Rockin' Ricky Rialto, greeting us from Kingston Falls, a gorgeous little slice of 80s Americana, and absolutely nothing like any town that I ever lived in. Now, Kingston Falls must be prone to blizzards because there's snow covering everything, but we do get to meet our main human character, Billy Peltzer, who is trying unsuccessfully to get his bug, I believe it is. Maybe it's a beetle. Don't know what the difference is, but it won't start. Murray Futterman, his next door neighbor, is a fantastic character who comes along cursing foreign cars. Not a fan. Does talk up his Kentucky Harvester tractor, though. He's very proud of that thing. Billy decides to head off to work on foot, hoping not to be late to the bank with his trusty dog Barney, and is greeted by 80s goddess, Fast Time at Ridgemont High alum, Phoebe Cates, who plays the role of his love interest, Kate. Speaking of Fast Times, we also get Judge Ryan Holt in a small role here as Billy's sometimes friendly antagonist, and we meet the evil Miss Deagle, who apparently finances everything in the town. She does not like Billy, and she likes his dog even less. She's got some nefarious plans for that dog, who knocked over a porcelain snowman and broke the head off, which I can get would be a little frustrating, but why do you need a porcelain snowman in a town covered with snow? It looks like Hoth. Quick personal side note with this movie, when Billy comes home, he walks through the front door, and the Peltzers have a display of two broadswords crossed on the wall hanging. Every time somebody comes through the front door, they knock one of those things off. I just remember thinking that's a cool decoration. I remember growing up wanting two broadswords on my wall at all times. And then I remember I have a younger brother and somebody would have died. So we never did that. And with Billy's dad being an inventor, they got gadgets that he made all over this house. And it's hilarious because they're gadgets that they already have an invention for. Like the coffee maker that he came up with is 3 times bigger than a normal coffee maker that would work at all times, whereas Rand's coffee maker just sort of kind of works some of the time. The juice maker is about 15 times bigger than a carton of orange juice would be. Watching them malfunction over the course of the movie is funny, but you really appreciate the family supporting the husband, supporting his dream, and struggling through everyday life trying to make these things work. Just a wonderful scene when Rand comes home. Of course, he knocks a sword off the wall, has to put it back in, but he greets Billy, he greets his wife, and he breaks the news, hey, I've got a present for you, but I won't keep it until Christmas. You have to open it now. So he asks the wife to get the lights. She picks up the remote device that, of course, he designed, dims the lights. They're sitting by fireside, and that's when we meet the Mogwai that Rand has named Gizmo. I wanted one so bad. Billy automatically takes to Gizmo. Gizmo automatically takes to Billy. Very sweet moment. And in a film boiling over with 80s mainstays, you just had to have Corey Feldman pop up.
Hey, what's his name?
His name's Gizmo. Giz? He's a Mogwai.
Gizmo. Cute.
He's here as Pete, the friendly tree delivery boy. Billy introduces Pete to Gizmo. They bond, they hit it off real well. But, pivotal point of this movie, Pete, when he goes to pick Gizmo up, knocks over a cup of water onto Gizmo. Gizmo starts thrashing around. The fur on the back of Gizmo starts to bubble up, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 tufts of fur pop up into the air and land nearby. Billy and Pete watch, unsure of what the hell just happened, and slowly 5 new Mogwai are brought into the world. Rand hears about this and he thinks it's great because he plans on calling it the Peltzer Pet. He wants to market them. Gizmo's not as excited, and the new Mogwai don't seem to like Gizmo very much at all. Billy takes one of these new ones to his old teacher at school to run some experiments on it, to see if he can find out anything about this species. What is this thing? Why did it multiply when it got wet? Of course, he uses a water dropper, drops a single drop of water on the head of this thing, and we get another Mogwai. So for those of you keeping track at home, that's 7 now. We cut to a bar where Kate is also picking up shifts and working, and Mr. Futterman is hammered. He's driven his prized Kentucky Harvester to the bar to get loaded. Billy shows up. Billy and Kate safely convince Mr. Futterman to walk home as opposed to drive. Then Billy decides to take Kate home on a stroll of their own. Billy ends up shooting a shot, and boom, man gets a date.
If you're not doing anything this Thursday night, maybe you'd like to go out on a date with me?
I'd love to.
I always liked those two as a couple in this movie. And damn, that town looks so good on that walk home. I cannot brag enough about how Kingston Falls looks. But this is where things get interesting, because the new batch of furballs are so devious that they fray the cord from Billy's alarm clock to where it's set on a certain time. Billy winds up feeding them, not knowing it's already after midnight. And on top of that, back at the lab where the teacher has kept the other one, he winds up sneaking into a sandwich after midnight. So these things know what they're trying to do. Billy wakes up. Gizmo's still there, furry, beautiful as ever, but on the floor, the 5 Mogwai have now turned into 5 cocoons that resemble the eggs from Alien. And there was a great touch because in the middle of all 5 of those things was a Fangoria magazine. I dug that. I popped for that. So unfortunately for these guys, it doesn't take long for these things to hatch. And the transition going from the cute, beautiful, wonderful, furry little big-eared Mogwai to these scaly, creepy-looking critters, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And the poor teacher is dispatched with fairly quickly. Billy finds his body and is also attacked by the gremlin that killed the teacher. Now Billy's patching himself up, and then he realizes, my mother's at home with 5 of these things. Tries to call home. Gremlin back home pulls the phone line. Billy decides to bail and head straight back to the house. Speaking of Billy's mom, can we talk about how big of a badass she was in this movie? She hears a noise. She grabs the biggest kitchen knife I've ever seen in my life. Michael Myers Eat Your Heart Out. And she just gets after it. She sees these things and immediately adjusts, killing 3 of them before Billy winds up saving her from the 4th with one of the broadswords on the wall. You knew those would come in handy. He beheads one of these suckers straight into the fireplace, and Stripe, who's the guy with the mohawk, he's the leader of the Gremlins. He winds up seeing the whole thing, barely escapes. So Stripe realizes he needs some backup, right? His army just got run through, so he heads straight to the Kingston Falls YMCA with Billy and Gizmo not far behind, and Stripe jumps into the YMCA pool. That is not good for our heroes. Billy and Gizmo decide that discretion is the better part of valor, and they bail. They head straight to the police station, and we get this cool scene of Stripe walking down Main Street, coming out of the shadows before hundreds of other gremlins follow him down the street. Everything is about to change drastically for Kingston Falls. These things thrive on chaos, and they tear this town apart. Mrs. Deagle doesn't make it very long. Ricky Rialto is killed on air, that poor guy. And Corey Feldman holds his own, though, because it's Corey Feldman. He takes a slingshot, and he's just plunking these things off of his roof one by one. This is a great ending to a wonderful film with this movie. Several different parts at the climax of this thing. I mean, the movie theater part where they're all gathered watching Snow White and the Seven Doors. I thought that was really cool. Billy had a great idea on how to handle that situation.
They're inside.
All of them?
We get into a Montgomery Ward department store where Stripe makes his final stand. Awesome ending to this movie. Broke my little 5-year-old heart to see Gizmo have to go back with the old grandfather from Chinatown. I was not a fan. I get it. Everything that the grandfather from Chinatown was concerned about was amplified by 100, considering what actually happened. And the Peltzers had to know it too. It was probably a better idea for Gizmo to go back with them. That being said, I probably cried at this movie. I'm pretty sure I did. 9 out of 10. This thing ages gracefully. This is a classic. They followed it up with a sequel. Maybe we'll get into that one. Maybe we won't. I just think the chemistry between Billy and Kate was tremendous. I thought the ancillary characters in this movie were great. Futterman was great. Judge Reinhold's character was great. Rand Peltzer was great. The mom was fantastic. Even Mrs. Deagle worked her role extremely well. I mean, it was hard to find a lot of flaws with this movie. I mean, it was just that good. And they don't make them a whole lot better than this. So, that being said, this is Aging Gracefully. I'm Matthew Essex. I'll see you on the other side.